Hey there, what's going on, my friend? In this video, I talked to my coach, Cody. You could look at Cody like he's a therapist, psychologist, or just a self help coach. We discover a couple of things about why Cody started what he started, my own personal testimonial with Cody, and why it is that I sought out a coach myself after 8 years of personal development. It's my hope that you watch this video and gain some sort of insight to help you in your own life if you're in a space and time where you're struggling and you just need answers. Enjoy. This makes I laugh. I laugh in all of our sessions. I laugh, and you're like, "What are you laughing at?" And it's like, the answer was so simple.
It's like, holy cow, dude. Like, I was under the grip of so much suffering, and now it's like I'm totally freaking clear.
So was it really about the fact that I was hungry, or about the fact of my perception around not being able to eat yesterday? And then what does that say about my relationship to food?
What's really happening is it's a relationship, a faulty relationship with yourself around food.
All of the personal development books, all of the courses, everything, like, it just wasn't working. And it's one of the reasons why I'm excited to be working with you, because I've talked to so many coaches in 8 years. I've been in the self-development world for almost a decade now. And not just like, oh yeah, I'm into self-development, like thousands of books, like countless of hundreds of hours of courses. And like I've told you, the meditation and the grounding and hugging trees and ayahuasca in the desert, and like, dude, you name it, I've done it. Parasite cleanses, the breath work. Like, dude, talk to me. Come, like, talk to me. I promise you, I've tried it.
Well,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything written up. I just figured we hop on, just talk and casually chat, and eventually some things would, roll out and pop up.
Yeah, that's always
Um,
good. Nice and organic.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Then just clip it.
yeah, exactly. Your journey is actually the most reflective of my own personal journey.
Oh, cool.
And for real, when it comes to finding the right alignment for work and a
Mhm.
way to make money.
Yeah.
Um, so I see you as as a reflection of like myself in terms of the struggles that I had the most, and that had and more specifically, like I could say, certain issues or healing this up or healing that up, right? Like being hard on myself was a big pattern that I used to have. Um, and I've done loads and loads of progress on that, right? Just like really identifying judgment and what it feels like when I'm in it towards myself, etc. But
Uh-huh.
the biggest struggle and like the part that really like just frustrated me the most was when I was in my early 20s, coming out of college. I really struggled with trying to find what I want to do in order to make money, but at the same time be able to make a difference.
Mhm.
Because when I grew up, right around when I was 18, I discovered, did I tell you how I found out about Alex Jones at like 18?
No, nope, I don't think
Yeah.
so. Infowars,
Well,
Alex Jones?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so my dad and I started going down the rabbit hole together in terms of conspiracy theories when I was around 18 in my senior year in high school. And so I knew about a lot of the corruption just overall in general with big pharma was a big one that like I figured, okay, if our food is getting poisoned and all this stuff, and then we're getting sick, and then the people who are basically poisoning the food are now banking off of our sickness and not only not fixing the sickness, but prolonging it by addressing the symptoms, you know
Mhm.
so that was a big part of the regime, if you will, or the machine or the powers that be, right? Is like the medical uh sector, right? And then, you have the energy sector as well, and I had done enough research to at least come to terms on my own to realize that like we have free energy as well. We have the technology to end human suffering. Like we really
Mhm.
do. But it's
Mhm.
all deliberately being kept and hidden, right? So I was trying to find what can I do about this situation for real and
Right.
make money. And I struggled with a long time, like selling skincare, selling a bunch of other things that just didn't matter to me. And I knew I was ripping people off because, Like there was this skincare stuff that I sold one time, where it was like it was a skin exfoliator. I was doing it at the mall, like for, with all the Israeli skincare people
Yeah.
come over, and then they do the exfoliator and see all the dead skin come off,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
you're like, ah. Well, we sold those things starting out at $800, but we could go as low as $50.
Right.
And
Right.
I was like, dude. And
Yeah.
then I thought it was supposed to be all organic, and I'm telling people that. And then I finally one day look at the back of the stuff. I just took their word for it. And it's got all this stuff in there that I knew about that was bad for people. And I was a part of a network marketing company at the time that
Mm.
was all about organic superfoods to get people healthy.
Right.
So immediately I was like, I'm doing the same thing. Like I'm totally out of integrity here.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just kept going to where it was like from job to job while I was trying to build this network marketing business. Um, and I just didn't have, I had a lot of personal issues that were getting in the way of me even be able to be successful in network marketing. And for
Mm.
whatever reason, not only do those personal issues keep me from it, but on divine purpose, I believe, I didn't really have a sponsor anymore because the guy who enrolled me bowed out. And I
Okay.
went to go look for additional uplines, and it was like nobody was willing to really take me on.
Uh-huh.
So, I never really had success in that in the way that I needed to, because I also needed new skills, but I didn't have
Mm.
anybody, to really show me those skills. And I also have my own personal issues. So for a long time, I was trying to get out of, the normal job, the matrix job that I was making my regular income in, and then
Mhm.
trying to make my network marketing dream come true, which really was just to be able to make a difference and own my own time and not have to
Right.
work for somebody else.
Right.
So that was the big issue for a long time. And then finally, when I came across somebody who, was coaching, I had already kind of came to this realization that, that's the direction I want to go in. And then within a few months, I met, a significant previous mentor of mine that basically had a year-long coaching academy, and that's when I got in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I think it's beautiful, and it's like I already told you that I spent so long trying to figure it out. And I did really well with sales and everything too, like extremely well. Sometimes the struggle that I faced in the last few years has been almost like this imposter like syndrome. And I'm I'm facing it now too with the YouTube channel that I was just telling you about.
Okay.
And it's strange. And I'll get to my point here, but I want to just add some context because this is the reason why I'm so happy to be working with you. Because after years and years and years of trying to figure it out, I realized that everywhere that I was going was adding knowledge and wisdom, right? I was adding value to myself as a human being, but there was just something else missing, and something else is still missing, or my perspective and perception around what is wrong with me or whatever I'm
Hmm.
suffering from still seems to be externally focused. And also other coaches, other individuals that said, hey, I could help you, and it just never like that never really lined up for me. I was always willing to like give them a shot, jump on a call with them, feel them out. It's really nice. I think that you and I met each other in person. Obviously, I think that probably added to what we're now doing and me working with you. But that wasn't the nail in the coffin either. Like we had two or three free phone calls, and I'm like, oh, okay, this human's not just trying to extract from me immediately. He's willing to show his light and his truth in that he's trying to help me without there being a monetary exchange right out of the gate. And for me, that's
Hmm.
huge
Hmm.
because like intentionality is everything. And what I don't really pay too close attention to what people say. I pay closer attention to what they do, because what someone does is a much higher indicator of where they're at mentally, emotionally, spiritually than what they're saying. Because there's lots of silver tongues out there, and I'm one of them. So like I get it. Like you're not like I'm not.
Yeah.
I am that I am, as Yeshua was saying. Like we
Yeah.
all like. Don't, I'm not. You ain't gonna fool me because I know that because I am that. I've been that. Sometimes I continue
Right.
to be that, and so I noticed that that wasn't you, which was really like, I admired it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to work with them. And I'm excited
Mhm.
about it because it's really, your work is really helping me understand that a lot of what I thought was the problem, like the food and this, that, and the other, may be a portion of the problem, but it originates from what I'm starting to understand with you from some form of maybe trauma or energetic frequency from a thought wave that I'm not yet aware of. And then all of a sudden, I'm trapped in this cycle that feels physical, but really started esoterically or metaphysically or whatever you want to say, whatever label you want to give it. And that's been powerful for me, man.
Mm,
So much of me and you. I don't know. Um, but it's nice. It's really nice to finally be like, oh, okay, maybe this is maybe this is what will actually help me. Because,
mm,
dude, last year I went through the worst dark night of the soul ever,
mm,
and it was because I'd come to the realization that I point over there, but my bookshelf is over there. All of the personal development books, all of the courses, everything, like it just wasn't working 8 years
mm.
in. And I'm like, I started to get cynical, very depressed and angry at the world because I'm like, I'm trying everything. I've done
Right.
everything that all these gurus are telling me to do. I'm trying it and it ain't working. And so I decided to just shut the books down and literally go within, not do like, okay, all this isn't working. So I'm just going to shut everything out, all the YouTube, all of the videos, all the courses online, all the gurus, all the books, everything. And I'm going to sit and I'm going to stare out a window, literally, and just be and see if I can feel so deep into whatever this is that's going on inside here that I can come to an answer. Unfortunately, because I didn't know how to process these emotions like you're teaching me how to do, I found real dark shit, very uncomfortable feelings that I didn't know what to do with. But I thought I'm going to sit in this like Buddha and I'm going to get this shit figured out, right? Because I'm going to
Yeah.
look at it long enough to get it figured out. Not true. You can look at the darkness long enough until it potentially consumes you. Because I ultimately got to a point where I'm like, oh, my mind is becoming so dark because I'm only focused
Mm.
on what I'm feeling inside, but I'm not processing it. And that's one of the
Right.
biggest takeaways that I've gotten with you so far is like, first of all, just the awareness. I mean, it's a process. The process of processing is a process, and that was a mouthful, but like just the awareness of it all and then processing that emotion to allow it to move through you or move out of you or wherever the hell it moves. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But that's been really helpful. And I'm not saying I got any of it figured out. There's still so much resistance that pops up, bro. Like I said yesterday, I was in resistance all day long to being hungry.
Yeah.
And then today I woke up and I was cool. Why? Why was I cool today? Because I knew I could eat today. So was it really about the fact that I was hungry or about the fact of my perception around not being able to eat yesterday? And then what does that say about my relationship to food? Even though I eat a whole
Yeah.
food, very healthy, organic, diet, no
Yeah.
alcohol, no processed drinks, no processed food, period. If it didn't come, if it didn't run, walk, swim, fly, grow out of the ground or off of a tree, I'm not consuming it. And so that was profound. Monica brought that up yesterday. She's like, well, your relationship with food doesn't seem to be too healthy. And I'm like, what do you mean? I eat extremely healthy food. And she's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And I'm like, oh. So I started like really thinking about it and I'm like, I haven't come to an answer yet. Hopefully we can work on that in our next session. But
Yeah.
like my relationship around food is consuming my life, bro. Like
Yeah.
so many hours of my life, even though it's healthy food, there's still something that like I have to figure out how to let that go and still because I'm not saying not to be healthy, that I don't want to be healthy, but there's this weird thing that's consuming me in terms of food every day. Obviously on my days where I'm not fasting, and then on days where I am fasting, it's consumed me. It's like my whole day, and it's. But anyways, that's
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
anyway.
No, I mean, you bring up a couple things. So first, I'll just say with the food, um, it's interesting that when you mentioned it twice, that your relationship with food is is needs work at the very
Mm,
least.
right.
And the first time you said it from you, and the second time you said it from Monica.
Okay.
But the first time when you said it, I thought you were going to say the relationship with yourself.
Mm,
Now, I bring that up because it is your relationship with food, but it's on a deeper level, kind of coming back to that premise on, getting to the core, getting to the root, the energetic cause, right? Like the thought forms, whatever's going on at the causal levels. What what's really happening is it's a relationship, a faulty relationship with yourself around food.
Mm. Okay.
So there's something going on to where when you're like yesterday and constantly obsessed about it and in a really uncomfortable place, there's something going on in terms of what you feel you can or cannot do. And some part of you is having a hard time with just that concept. And food
Hmm.
is allowing you to experience that and ultimately process it out.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of your intention to do this. It could be a number of things as to why you are so focused on this. Some of it could be, backed by your soul, your higher self, meaning like, the greater part of you.
Uh-huh.
And then other parts of it, in terms of like the obsession or when you feel like, you're spending unprecedented amounts of time and that, that's obviously being fueled by something else, right? But it's all
Hmm.
an attempt for you to work out some uh you're attempting to work out some part of yourself,
Hmm.
like work through some part of yourself. That's ultimately what the deeper goal here would be,
Hmm.
is correcting the relationship or inner talk that you're having as you're in this experience and bring
Right.
more and illuminating that, and getting to that. Because as it's kind of sneaky to where, you know, to really get to the root of how you're feeling about something
Right.
as we talked about before, like illuminating the story that's popping up on the inside as you make the choice to decide whether or not you're going to process,
Right.
right? Because there was like some resistance around choosing to process, right? Choosing to actually, take 5 to 8 minutes and process it out.
Yeah.
And I had highlighted that, well, whatever when you get the idea to do that, and you think about the option to do that, there's a story that's firing on the
Mm.
inside, and then
Mm.
that's creating resistance. So some way about how you're thinking about it, right,
Hmm.
is causing some of that resistance, and it's or an internal conflict rather is probably
Hmm.
another way of saying it.
Yeah. It's probably got something to do with the fact that I don't like being told what to do. I don't like, I don't, it's not, I don't like, there's a deep, this word, not reverence. There's a deep, resistance and almost like rage against human beings trying to control me.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
it might just be something to do with that. Whenever I go to tell
Yeah.
myself you can't do something,
Bingo.
then
And
that
how you're
defiance.
going about how you're telling that to yourself,
Right, right. And
the
so
way you're
instead
going
of it
about it.
being a directive, we got to start going with questions because the relationship with
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
nailed it. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it
Bringing
makes
it into
sense. It makes sense. So what I'm doing is I'm telling myself without being aware of it, you can't have food today. You don't get to have food today. And if someone
play.
else told me that, the government or the state tried to tell me that, yeah, like
Yeah,
fuck
dude.
you, motherfuckers. You're not telling me
Exactly.
nothing.
Exactly.
So I go to do that to myself, and then yeah, well that would make sense. Then I'm upset all day and can't figure it out, and I'm blaming it on the food and that oh I'm hungry,
Yes.
but really I just missed that first thing that happened, and it manifested into that
Yes.
almost like a shield or smoke screen. So
Yep.
now I can't see it, but
Because
that
it's
would
X
make
because you're focused externally. Yeah.
yeah, that makes
Versus
sense.
what's going on the inside, what you're feeling, bringing that up, because all that's going on in your subconscious, meaning it's just below your conscious awareness that the
Uh
conversation's going on. So through
uh-huh.
the questions that I walk you through, it allows you to get entry into what's really going on a deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
by number one, identifying what possible attachments are at play and
Mm-hmm.
influencing you to hold on or
Right.
resist, right? And
Mm-hmm.
once you're able to identify what attachments that we're holding on to, such as uh, needing to be healthy or, whatever, I want to be my greater self. So I'm gonna, you know, be as pure as possible to level my consciousness up,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then we have an attachment towards that. So then it becomes a pushing energy or
Right.
on, a forceful energy,
Mm.
because and that would be an example of a spiritual ego because it looks like you're being spiritual,
Right.
right? But in truth, we're actually going about it in a very unconscious way
Mm.
because we have an attachment towards being spiritual. So now that there's nothing spiritual about being attached to being spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes so much sense. And once again, one of the reasons why I'm excited to be working with you, because it's just
Yeah, man.
of all the books, of all the people, of everything. It's like this makes I laugh. I laugh in all of our sessions. I laugh, and you're like, "What are you laughing at?" And it's like the answer was so simple. Like the application. I'm not saying the application's not work, but it's simple in the sense that it's just like this was not so hard. And I'm still
What was
trying.
that? What was that comment about Mars?
Oh, well, what I was trying to do to fix myself was like almost like building a rocket ship and sending it to Mars. Complicated. And then I realized that it's so simple. It's more like a giant elephant right in front of you trying to hide behind a tiny rock. And that's why it's funny because I'm like I couldn't see the elephant right in front of me hiding behind a tiny rock, and I'm trying to build this like rocket ship to Mars to fix this whole thing, and it's just
Yeah.
so convoluted. But that can happen in the self help space, man. Like you can
Yeah.
really go down a wicked rabbit hole
Yeah.
of stuff, and it might help some people. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm sure some people, but this has been very powerful
Yeah.
because, and that's the other thing that I will say, because you just brought up about the ego and spiritual, like having a spiritual ego. I think one of the things that I did over the last 8 years, because when we become enlightened or we wake up to the lies or we start to see more of what maybe other people can't see, the ego really likes to attach itself to that and be like, oh yeah, now I'm more. Now the veil is pulled away from my eyes and I can see a little bit more. I'm so aware and enlightened, and
Hmm.
now I don't think very many other people can see this, and the ego plays that little game. And I did that
Yeah.
for a long time. And I think what I did was I indirectly reversed my awareness. Like,
Hmm.
and what I mean is like I used to believe that I was so hyper aware that it was like either a gift or sometimes a curse because I'm so hyper aware. And I
Hmm.
think through believing how hyper aware I am, I lost key awarenesses around my
Hmm.
relationship with myself that's
Hmm.
caused all this suffering and
Yeah.
all this pain. And so working with you has really showed me, oh, you're not nearly as aware as you think you are, my friend, and so that's been humbling, very humbling, and
Yeah.
kind of frustrating a little bit too, because sometimes I'm not able to see what I know I need to see when I'm physically suffering and there's something going on, some emotion moving around. I'm angry or sad or uncomfortable or whatever it is. I'm not able even, and that's probably due to the fact that I'm not running through these questions like I should be, your protocol like I
Hmm.
should be. But
Hmm.
I'll sit there and I'll be like, man, what did I miss? Like, what am I miss? Like yesterday, all day yesterday, I'm like, what am I missing? I sat there in that chair and
Hmm.
the pain was in my stomach, right? And I like focused on the pain and I'm like, it's okay. I'm telling myself it's okay to feel this way. Like it's okay. But once again, I didn't go through your
Hmm.
protocol from step one to the
Yeah.
end. I'm starting somewhere in the middle and just telling the
Yeah.
emotion it's okay. And it's not
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so that was interesting yesterday
So cool.
that I had
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, really cool reflection, in the sense that like because how do you know it's not working? Like if you were to contrast that as to what goes on inside the sessions.
Oh, well, the feeling stayed there for 12 hours in our sessions. The feeling, like that one day, the feeling almost immediately went away. I had a pain in my stomach, and 90% of it was gone after 5 minutes of our protocol.
Hmm.
You asked me, you're like, how long do you think that was? I'm like, I don't know, 5 minutes. And you're like,
Yeah.
how do you know that that worked? I'm like, because the pain in my stomach is like 90% diminished immediately, which tells me it's my perception around it,
Yeah.
not so much this biological, physiological pain that's actually happening.
Yeah.
And so yesterday I know that it wasn't working because I sat there all day and the pain never
Yeah.
like it never went away. Like I dealt with it all day yesterday until I went to sleep, dude. It was painful. Sucked so bad. But whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, We're working on it.
Yeah, yeah, it's all a work in progress, and in terms of the whole hyper awareness, and like it is tricky because until someone has uh, a real bodily experience around how to apply all of these things that we can learn, that we have learned, in these spiritual books, being present, and or allowing yourself to feel your feelings, or being the witnesser or the
Yeah.
objective observer to your feelings, right? But how are you supposed to be an observer to your feelings if you're supposed to feel them? Like
Right.
what, how do you, do all of that? And until you have a really good, experience of where somebody like myself or someone else is breaking this down on how it actually goes and what order and whatnot. And then you have that physical bodily, experience. Some people use the word somatic, it's becoming a very trendy type of catchy word. But until you know what it's like to move energy and come out on the other side, it's like, holy cow, dude, like I was under the grip of so much suffering, and now it's like I'm totally freaking clear,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's how like, applying these things. That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing because most of it is on the intellectual level where we're reading about it, but we're not actually having a
Right.
productive experience with what we're
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another reason why I stopped reading all the books. But to that point, it's also one of the reasons why I'm excited to work with you because I realized that, I've done um, QTTR, quantum hypnotherapy, timeline
Okay.
progression therapy, just regular psychoimmunological therapy, or whatever it's called, just your regular therapy that we've been doing for the last 70 years or so. Sit and just talk
Okay.
to somebody.
Yep.
And I'm not like downing any of those things because they were all um, incremental. They were all like important to the process of me getting to where I'm at today. And some of them
Yeah.
had different effects on me that were useful. I will say that, especially the hypnotherapy, but none of them, because in most of those other therapies, you're not given tools or a
Mhm.
protocol or a practice to be able to do this yourself because the therapist is the one that's like really trained in all of this. And so if you walk away from
Right.
it, think, well, I didn't really get anything from that. I don't really know what to do with that, especially some of the hypnotherapy. You're like, you go to places and you're just like, okay, what am I doing with all that now, man? Like, that's great and all, but what are we doing? And so when our first session that we had, and I know you said that this is not typical for everybody, but for me to be able to sit with you and have that kind of release that I had very organically and naturally spoke to me because it was a physiological experience. And now that imprints on my mind and adds value to it. So I'm like, oh,
Right.
and then to have that diminish and pain in my gut my stomach that I had almost immediately was like, oh shit, okay. And he's going to show me how he just did what he did for me and
Yeah.
give me this like template
Yeah.
that's worth its weight in gold. And you just really don't get that very many other places.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy you said that. And and what where that really comes from is what I believe coaching is, at least authentic coaching in my view, which is I'm not, and it's this principle is literally like sprinkled in throughout the whole modality. You had mentioned, the protocol and the practice, and I call it another healing modality, right? So a modality, and it's sprinkled in through the modality, and that's this principle that I'm not the one doing anything for you or healing you or telling you like what to say, telling you, I'm attempting to like not bring my experience into your experience whatsoever,
Right.
to where I'm really not giving you any answers when it comes to, you know, healing this relationship that we all have inside ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because it needs to come from you. Otherwise, it's just going to be dependent on me. And then when we're done with the session, the practice stops.
Right. Right.
There's, and so now it's like there's this dependency that's grown. And in my view, that's not like, that's not why I'm here. That's not why we're here. We all need to
Right.
learn how to do this on our own because it's what makes or breaks a heaven or hellish type of experience here on earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're someone who wants to break beyond all limitation, right? And you're on this path of spiritual ascension and becoming your true soul self, your true authentic self, um, then, you know, even if you don't make a business out of coaching and you become a life coach as your primary method of making a difference in the world, um, I always encourage people to do it because what it does, even if you just have one or two clients on the side or something like that on a weekly basis, or possibly a bi-weekly basis, depending on how you want to run your practice or your business. But, as long as you have something like that going, it accentuates and accelerates your transformation like so much because you're now working with not just your own resistance, but someone else's and
Mm-hmm.
someone else's ego. And you can see
Mm.
based on how what your input is, you can see the response that you're getting in terms of am I triggering resistance in this person, or am I guiding them and facilitating them along a journey to where they're clearing their own resistance?
Mm.
Because if I am triggering resistance, then more than likely I'm attempting to insert myself, right? And I'm getting over involved based on the fact that they're probably going through something that I'm still working through inside myself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can get extra major insights into yourself by helping someone else. And here's the eerie thing. It's super eerie and it's not weird. It's totally divine, but
Uh-huh.
it's just like, wow. It gets so clear in terms of the reflection that you get from that client about yourself to where um the sessions that you're having with clients can turn into like your saving grace. Like they can
Mm.
save your ass in so many ways because you're helping them go through something. And like for example, I'll use an anonymous example of someone working through their relationship right now. And there's uh they're kind of like good, they're stable in the relationship, but then something happens to where one of their friends gets involved with a relationship that they were in. Like, okay, so basically, this client's boyfriend has
Mm-hmm.
a friend that was dating this girl, and they break up, and now that drama of the breakup is infiltrating their relationship, meaning my
Mm.
client's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And she's wondering like, why is this triggering me so much? Why do I even care? I find myself getting wrapped up almost in their drama and
Mm-hmm.
bringing it in, and it started to cause problems within her relationship. And what I helped her discover um, on her own is, and luckily she was there, she was ready, so she was able to do it herself. And we've been working together for we've had about 6 months now.
Wow.
But she discovered that um, the dynamic that was triggering her, that she was witnessing in this other relationship, the reason why it was so sticky was because there was a similar dynamic playing out in her own relationship.
Hmm.
And so, how he was treating this girl, she was having a similar experience on the girl's side in her own relationship. And that was the whole point. The higher divine
Mm.
purpose of this whole thing happening is so
Mm.
that she could see not only what's going on in her relationship, but that's actually what's going on in her relationship is also a reflection of her and herself, and
Ooh.
how her current boyfriend is quote unquote treating her
Yeah.
is how she's treating herself. And
Oof.
so you start correcting that relationship. And all of this manifested and orchestrated on her for her, benefit, right?
Right.
And honestly, for everyone's benefit involved. But,
Of course.
unless you know how to trace it back and
Right.
find these parts of you,
Mm-hmm.
that are kind of going AWOL, if you will, the only way you can, that's why these things happen is because we're not able to get to it on our own. We need the reflection.
Yeah, the mirror. That's what I was just thinking is like the mirror is always there. Sometimes we just can't see what's in it. And
Yeah.
that's why
So
you're really good at what you do because the mirror is always there. But
yeah,
sometimes we just you can't see it, and you help. I know you helped me really big in being able to see it. So I could imagine how being a coach and going through your program and your coaching program would not only help other people, but also like almost hyper drive your own growth because now
that's it.
you're staring at the mirror all the time and you're
Yep.
getting these insights, and based off of whatever the response is from this client is going to be insight and a reflection to you on
Yes.
where you're at, you
So,
know.
so yeah, exactly. So I'll give you another example how this specifically applies. So there was this, uh, yeah, so how she was feeling in response to the communication dynamic that her and her partner had.
Mhm.
As I was guiding her through all of this, I already know that everything that I'm helping a client go through in a particular session is either something that I just went through in my own way, in my own life, like within the last day or week, right? Because I'm working on a weekly basis.
Right.
It's either something that I just worked through, something that I'm still currently working through, or something that I'm about to step into.
Yeah.
Clockwork every single day to where it's like, yes, the mirror's always there, but it's always about what's going on in current time. And that's one of the golden keys because a lot of times, that if you can figure out how what's going on in your life in terms of reflection, in terms of, experiences that you're having with other people, and how that is happening in present time, how you're using that to, and you're applying that behavior in your life in current time in some way, that's the golden key because now you can take this information and then now you know where and how to apply it to get
Yeah.
new different types of results. So to make it super specific, there was this idea that she wasn't feeling heard in her relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but it was only because she was having a very overbearing part of herself, not allowing to hear herself out,
Mm.
meaning the feelings that she was having in any given situation, she was kind of gaslighting herself or
Oh,
skimming them over or
oh,
intimidating herself out of her own feelings. I mean,
wow.
I'm sure anybody who's listening to this has probably had that experience where you're in this inner conflict, and the moment that you think of one thing, the opposite point of view comes right in, and you never
Mm-hmm.
really get anywhere. You got to stay there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's us being in a fight with our own energy. And so, as she's learned how to work with her own energy, and give proper space for all parts of her to be heard, now she's finding that she really values because she's been with this person for a little while, a couple years, but only now is she starting to even become aware that she's never really had a huge voice in her relationship in terms of her partner really understanding her at the level that she would like to be understood,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so and that's because that's what she's doing to herself on the inside, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, now here's the cool part, how this applies to me is that I have the same dynamic going on with my father,
Mm.
literally paralleled at the same time over the course of, because this was a theme that we worked with for a few weeks, right?
Right.
And this is just so happened to be around the same time when I was visiting my father's side of the family. And I'm
Okay.
still, I mean, I'm correcting my relationship with my father, which is ultimately the relationship that I have with myself when it comes to, you could say, the parental masculine role or the masculine energy inside myself being
Mm.
overbearing, if you will, hard, hard on myself, right? Things like that. Like, all of that is is that's ultimately how it's applying. So when I'm working with her and I'm helping her and her issue, I'm getting in also another objective look at what's going on in myself because it's so objective because I'm helping someone else outside of me. So it gives me extra insight in terms of being objective to my own issues, which again can also be traced, the issues the outside of me, those issues can be traced back to me on the inside. That's where it
Mm.
all comes from.
Bizarre. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. That's crazy.
It really is. And then especially, because again, so let's illuminate this a little bit more. Because a lot of what I'm seeing in the social media space with other leaders who clearly know how to work with their own emotional energy, they understand emotional processing. I don't obviously, know all of these people personally, and I don't have an insight as to how deep they really are going, but they do
Mm-hmm.
have an understanding and a gist of what's kind of going on, right? And some of these other leaders in the space. And but what I don't see is being able to use specific examples at the level that I'm doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the reflection, layer by layer by layer, right? Laying it out for you. So, and this is also a vulnerable thing as well, right? For me to be able to share so you can see the examples and
Mm-hmm.
really see it in your life. So now, okay, if I have a pattern of, let's say, not hearing myself out, right? Meaning that, if I'm in a relationship with my father and he's, you know, I'm listening to him, and then when it comes to my turn to speak, I'm not given that same courtesy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm immediately shut down, etc. Well, you know, um, again, this has to do with what does it look like when I'm doing that to myself? It's not just saying, oh, like I know I'm shutting myself down. Like that's all in your head. Like you're just looking for it and you're trying to find it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into the actual emotional experience of processing, it might look something like, you know, uh, me having this conversation with myself, like, I don't know, um, you're so stupid. Like, why would you even think about it that way? Or why would you even do something like this? Like, and just total shutdown, right? And having those kinds of conversations, or, if you feel like if you ever missed out on an opportunity, on a perceived opportunity, and you're thinking to yourself, like, man, like I should have just turned left instead of right, and now I have to deal with all this stuff. Like that's an example of that energy. Is that fear rooted energy, or is that love based energy?
Right. Yeah, definitely fear for sure.
Yeah. So, once you can identify that, then you start working with that energy, and you don't even have to know all of the ways that I've categorized this. You could just be working with your own emotions, but just know on a larger scale, this is how it plays out. This is an example of how it ripples out, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But if you just purely knew how to work with your own energy, meaning that all that simply means is that when you catch yourself in resistance or in a fear-rooted feeling, something that doesn't feel good, it's
Mm-hmm.
got a negative charge to it and you're possibly stuck in it. Or maybe sometimes it's even more subtle where it's like you're not even actually triggered. Nothing happened in your external world to cause you to get upset, but for some reason you're just not feeling it 100%, or
Right.
something's off and you don't know what that is. Well, do you know how to go in and find it and alchemize it out of your system? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what we need to be able to learn how to do.
Yeah, well, that's mainly my biggest issue as my like just speaking about my own personal experience, that's my issue. Most of the time that I get really uncomfortable inside or I'm agitated or I'm feeling rage or anger or frustration, bitterness or whatever the lower level frequency is, I have there's no reason for it that I'm aware of. Like nothing happened in my external world. I didn't get
Right,
in a fight with anybody. Nobody cut me off on the highway. No, nothing bad has
right.
happened. Everything on paper pretending to my life is sweet. But yet
Yeah.
somehow I'm depressed 2 minutes out of getting out of bed. Well, where does that, what's going on there? And you've definitely been able to help me with that. So I agree 100%. Being able to know how to deal with that it's worth its weight. It's just a priceless thing. Really, it
Mm,
truly is. Because if you don't know how, you're in hell. Like
yeah.
you're literally in a state of hell for a very long time with no real meaningful way out of the hell. And I can say that personally that I've spent far too many days getting out of bed and just being like, I'm eating clean, I'm drinking a gallon of water a day, I'm exercising, I'm meditating, I'm doing the breath work, I'm doing like, why am I depressed? What is going on? This doesn't make sense. I got all kinds of money in the bank, a beautiful girlfriend, a beautiful family, people who love me. I'm not fighting with anybody. Like, there's nothing wrong on paper. Nothing
Right,
wrong. It's all great.
right, right,
Why do I feel
right,
so terrible 5 minutes after this day has started? There's no reason for it. And of course
right.
there is, of course.
Yes, yes,
I'm
right,
not saying that there's not, but someone who
right.
doesn't know otherwise, who's not working with you or someone like you, they
Yeah.
would just think there's no reason for it and they think they're going insane. And I've had plenty of those days too. Like,
And then, yep.
I
And
feel
then,
like I'm losing my shit.
yeah, and then it's like, okay, what can I do? And that's when you typically, this is a lot of how addictions are born, because then you go external to find something to soothe yourself coming from the outside in. you know this is where you can even get addicted. For myself, for a little while there, I would get addicted to going into the sauna, because it would
Mm,
force me into a state of relaxation if I stayed in it super when it's really hot, because there's no way you can stay in there that long unless you're breathing deeply.
mm-hmm,
Your breathing slows down. I mean, I know you're in the sauna quite a bit as well.
mm-hmm,
But it would force me and it would help in the sense of I would, be able to connect to a higher part of myself. I'd be able to connect more so with my soul or my higher self, because, I'm slowing everything down. I'm calming
mm-hmm.
myself down so those insights can come in, or at least the odds are increased that that can happen. But it doesn't teach me anything about these lower dynamics, why they're there and what's going on.
Right.
It doesn't teach me on how to actually move through those dynamics and understand where they are coming from and where this feeling is ultimately coming,
Yeah.
um, from. So, um, yeah, excellent, excellent topic and content here for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But I want to, before we hop off, I just want to just give some attention to, um, number one, I want to acknowledge you, for coming on here and, really just being vulnerable about, the fact that you even have a coach. I mean, you're clearly, you know, a well-established, man, I would say. You got a lot of things going for you. Got a lot of things together. And as you mentioned, on paper, there's some really cool things.
Last night I was talking to Monica and I'm just like, it's all gotta be in my head. And I don't mean that to say that like there aren't some influences in the external world that don't have influence over my physiological state of being. Like if you get shot in the shoulder, you're gonna have some like there's gonna be effect
Yeah.
for that energy. But
Yeah.
as it pertains to this food, I've been so fixated on the food for a long time now, being the reason why
Mm,
I suffer in some of the ways that I emotionally and mentally suffer. And I'm just coming to this understanding through experience and through, experience with you, through my own experience over 8 years of trial and error and marking shit off the list. Like, oh, it's not that. Oh,
yeah.
it's not that. It's not. And then working with you, that a lot of this is coming from the mind first, and then not understanding what's manifesting from the mind as it pertains to this energy that starts to go on in the body. And then before I know it, I'm trapped and I'm looking outwards to figure out what the causation of this effect in my body is. And then you're kind of lost. Then I don't know if that's fair to say. You're like in a dark forest trying to find something, and you're not probably gonna find it. So I see it, man. I don't got it down yet, but we just started working with each other, so we got time. You know it.
Yeah, totally. Um, Yeah, so that was the commending you aspect, right? And that was
Mm-hmm.
the side effect of that, what we just went through. The part that I wanted to touch on is, when it coming back to this DM of me outreaching to people on Instagram and
Mm-hmm.
letting them know, like the problem that so after all the things that we just talked about, like this is coming full circle. It's a really great illustration here because, like I mentioned, there's so many different avenues of how I can help, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem that I'm most passionate about solving is finding people like my old self who was struggling to find the right vehicle to express my potential through and to help,
Mm-hmm.
lift the consciousness of the planet and make money doing it, make
Right.
money doing something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people out there I know that are having the same struggle. And until we figure that out, it's well, not always, because clearly in your case it's not the case, but for a lot of people, including myself, way back when, it starts with a lot of just scarcity, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
scarcity, a lot of lack of abundance, and specifically financial, because that sector of our life is so out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can find something that's, better and better, it doesn't have to be in full alignment, but the more you have that, the more money you're going to be able to make if you're
Right.
closer to the alignment of why you're here as a soul,
Yeah.
and what's most important to you and your core values.
I agree.
Um, so and it's thanks to you that I was able to craft that question. And because again, you're probably the most significant reflection that I've had in terms of reflecting back to me that issue that you've had
Mm-hmm.
around finding something meaningful for work in a new way. Can you maybe
Right.
highlight on that, kind of what you were sharing with me when we first got on the call, like addressing it at its root, you know, and this,
Yeah.
because how we met, just for like the watchers and viewers, like we met in the sauna and we were talking about um well, you're talking about health, obviously, and some food
Yeah.
things, but then
Uh,
it came to the point to where, you'd felt like there was just a misalignment with what you were doing for work. And I was like, well, congratulations on helping a lot of people and, getting to this point in your career. And you're like, yeah, but like, here's what's going on. And, I've been in this battle. He's like,
right.
you left me that voice note and you're just like, appreciate it. But like, what's really happening for me is, so can you just like touch on some of that?
Yeah. 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 I mean, my struggle after, because I went out to the oil field in my early 20s and started working in the oil and natural gas field in Oklahoma.
Oh,
and
wow.
and and so that was young. I was born and raised on a dairy farm in southern Missouri, our neck of the woods out there.
Yeah.
So all I really knew was work with these two hands, right? Hard blue collar work. And so when I graduated from high school, I didn't go to college. I was really struggling, like with a
Mm,
massive drug problem, all kinds of different
mm,
issues as a teen. So I decided to just leave Missouri, started working the oil and natural gas field, and I did that for quite a few years. And I'm giving context here because it'll really help whoever's listening maybe relate to it and
mm,
assign more meaning and value to it, as opposed to just telling you why I want to do what I want to do. And so
yeah.
I worked in the oil field for 4 years. And a day after I bought my ex-girlfriend a 2016 Dodge Challenger, I got laid off. The day I brought the car in, the brand new car, day one,
Wow.
to show everybody at work, they laid me off at the end of the day. And that was my kind of first out of body experience. Some of people
Mm,
have had out of body experiences, some more profound than anything I've ever had, but it was nonetheless a day where I'm standing there and I'm in so much shock that this just happened. I just financed $35,000. I'm 26 years old. I got a girlfriend and her son to take care of, and he's firing me. And as he's talking to me, he's standing right next to me. He's standing to my left. And it might look like you're right to you, but I promise you it's my left. And we're talking to each other, and everything went quiet. It went mute like a movie whenever, or like when a bomb goes off,
mm,
like I could hear him talking, but I couldn't hear him
wow.
talking. Oh yeah, it was like full blown auditory was gone. And I'm like in this different realm looking at myself, down at myself almost. And I do this because it was literally up and to the right. And I'm looking down at myself and him having this conversation and
Wow.
like playing out different scenarios. One of them was like beating him to with an inch of his life. I was like livid at what was going on because I was a hard worker. Like, dude, there was no, it was, I don't, there was no reason to get laid off other than the fact that I just never really quite did very well in jobs like that because, uh, I have a problem with authority and being told what to do. We talked about that about an hour ago. So I'm getting laid off, and I realized to myself, I have to take back control of what's going on in life, right? And so to fast forward after getting laid off and really trying, this is when I started trying to figure out how can I contain or control my own destiny to the greatest degree possible, my own income,
Mhm.
be an entrepreneur. I didn't like the feeling of my income being stripped away from me in a moment with no control over it by people that were arguably less competent than me, less intelligent than me. So that was
Yeah.
like, it stung me. And so I went on a journey and I found the MLM, or it's not even an MLM, direct sales with the water, because my dad died of cancer. I started researching water and I realized that this electrolyzed reduced hydrogen water was a cool thing. So that was the first time, to your point, that was the first time in my life that I thought, okay, I'm going to help people. Right? There was the first time in my life that instead of looking at earning an income or making money by time, hours put in per day by doing whatever the employer needed me to do, I was looking at it like, okay, what problem can I solve for humans? And that will equate some form of fiat currency or money in my bank account. And so I did that and I did extremely well at it because I genuinely believed what I was doing was helping
Mhm.
humans, this water, and helping people, make money from their cell phones and their laptops. Long story short, that was 8 years ago. I ran into a brick wall and realized I wasn't actually helping anyone. Humans like to tell themselves lies. We tell
Mm.
ourselves tricky little lies, that ego thing, right? Like whatever we need to believe is a convenient lie to support the narrative in which we are currently on. We will do it. I do it. I try to pay attention to it as often as I can because it sneaks up on you. And that's how dangerous things happen. That's how humans die and wars happen because humans trick themselves into believing something that's not actually either true or the rest of
Yeah.
humanity, and they believe it and they'll fight and die for it. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
try to not do that because I see that as a potential problem with our this human collective consciousness in the mind in which we are operating under. And
Yeah.
so once I realized that, bro, I was like, oh shit. And everything fell apart when I realized I wasn't helping anybody with these water ionizers. Um, and so the last, let's see, 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years or so, I've really struggled to figure out like, how can I go out into the world and help humans? How can I like alleviate suffering in someone else's life? And so I did all these things that were way off to left field and not in alignment with that narrative. I sold
Mhm.
solar and I sold gutter protection in St. Louis, and like everything that I did that was more further and further away from this alignment that I'm talking about over here in terms of helping human beings, I felt emptier and emptier inside, and the worse and worse my
Mhm.
life got, physically,
Mhm.
emotionally, spiritually, it all, even financially, like it
Yeah.
all just started tanking because
Yeah.
I knew in the back of my head, this ain't helping people. I'm
Yeah.
having these people pull a $40,000 loan knowing that we're charging them like 30% on the back end. They could just go to their bank, but I'm not telling them that because I'm the sales guy in their house and I need to get the money. And it's just
Yep.
like such a
Yep.
manipulative system. All of it is very
Yep.
extractive and manipulative. But, anyways, I've struggled with that for about 4 or 5 years. And then that's whenever I found you. I'm like, look, man, I'm really just trying to figure out like what problem is the human race facing? And how can I help that? And I have yet to find anything that I genuinely truly believe that's like lit my heart on fire, like the water
Yeah.
did when I was 27.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in terms of, oh, this is going to help. This is going to help fix the problem. And the reason, and this is the last thing that I'll say, but the reason why that's been the case is because every time I come to, oh, this is the problem, I realize the problem goes deeper. So in
Mm.
other words, I'm trying to find the root, because anything less than the root of the problem in terms of our collective suffering to me is just like you're just putting a band-aid on a gash.
Yeah.
Like you're not actually fixing the problem. We need surgery here. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's not selling the next bullshit. It's not for me. And I'm not trying to diminish anything.
Yeah.
There's great products and services out there. But for
Yeah.
me, in my mind, I have to find this root of our suffering, and then hopefully I can go out into the world and maybe help alleviate that suffering by offering whatever product or service, if it entails one of those two things, to
Yep.
humans.
Yep.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I resonated with it so much because if you recall back to my version of my story, it was a similar thing.
Mm.
The skincare, I was selling door to door with cable and was like, and then the North Dakota pipeline was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, and I was really passionate about that. I stayed
Yeah.
up on it. I was keeping tabs on it, and I thought to myself, I'm like, dude, what am I like? I actually thought about going up there just because, that's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have
Uh-huh.
an activist inside for sure. Never
Right.
really did a whole lot, but I have.
Right.
Um, but I was just like, dude, what am I doing selling cable door to door? Like
Right.
direct TV, like
Right.
I am not, I mean, yeah, sure, maybe you could say there's some cool things you can learn on TV, but like I know I'm
Right.
not doing the world a favor, you
Right.
know? And so
Yeah,
I
we got
quit.
bigger
Yeah.
problems than
Yeah,
cable.
and I was literally just I got promoted to a sales manager. I was actually with some the guy who DirecTV basically found him, and he was creating the whole thing from the ground up. He landed a contract with DirecTV, and he started building a team, and I was the first one that he trained, and then he was going to literally just like throw all these new sales reps underneath me and promote me to manager and start helping and start
Right.
training.
Hmm.
And I quit, you know, and I thought back to myself, I'm like, huh, was that like me sabotaging myself? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you could say in a way I did make it very difficult on myself many times, uh,
Yeah.
in terms of than it needed to be,
Hmm.
because I did. I would go borderline broke, you know, because I was so righteous and
Yeah.
inflexible
Uh,
about being in alignment. You
Yeah.
know, I had a lot
Yeah.
of attachment of
Yeah.
going on.
Hmm.
And because of that, it held up my process quite a bit. Whereas if I would have just found, let's say, and eventually I got there, but but eventually, you know, it was like if I could just find a regular job that wasn't commission based, that didn't demand so much of all of my life force energy, I could just go in, clock in, come out, do some ape work, some monkey work, you know, stock some shelves, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I
Right.
can come back and start working on my purpose. And it
Hmm.
took me years before I actually surrendered because I had that much of a fight going on inside, making the other side wrong, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, it took a while to, you know, really get to this place. Like, thank God I found it, you know, like that's how I feel. And I know that there's people out there like me that are passionate about freeing us from, you could say, our own self-imposed limitations, which is
Hmm.
externally manifested as real external people
Yeah.
and groups and beings, you
Hmm.
know, that are further supporting the enslavement of humanity and humanity's consciousness. Like all that stuff is real, at least in my view, you know, and I was damned to, you know, I am so devoted to shifting that, to transforming that, to healing that. And it all starts with inside, you know, because all that stuff out there on the collective level is just it's just a result of a bunch of individuals either stuck in victim and in their own limitations. You
Hmm.
know, that's all it is. So enough of us start getting on the board on the ramp, you know, or getting on board with you know, healing and transforming ourselves, raising ourselves up. Um, you know, I mean, and there's so many personal benefits that we get to experience, you know, just in our own personal life. But that is the way that I see based on the fact that everything is a reflection. So the more of us that start, you know, healing ourselves, expanding our consciousness, you know, becoming lighter, becoming more unified inside of ourselves, that ultimately translates to how we treat each other. Because you're only going to treat a relationship the way that you treat yourself,
Right.
whether it's your kid, whether it's your, you know, your parent, whether it's your spouse or your sister or your brother. Like all of this are reflections about you working with some aspect of of yourself or ourselves. So in my view, I knew that I heal yourself, you heal the collective.
Yeah.
And you know, to me, that is the ultimate change that I can make. It ultimately ends up being, you know, be the change you see, change yourself, you know,
Yeah.
become your true self, you know. And I mean, even when you think about you know, you talked about Yeshua, right? Like or Jesus, depending on how you look at it. And it's like one person that was super conscious, or even you know, Buddha, all these
Right.
people, thousands of years in terms of their impact, you know, and they're still doing it. And I believe they were doing what we're doing, what you and I are doing. I
Yeah.
believe they figured out a way to transmute their own energies. I actually just thought of this last night. I was talking with a friend. You know how they say Jesus can turn water into wine?
Right.
It's transmutation.
Right.
I think that was completely metaphorical in
Yeah.
terms of being able to trans or lead into gold. Think about it.
Hmm.
It's a heavier, denser energy
Hmm.
externalized. You know, it's like, man, that guy can freaking turn lead into gold. It's a figure
Right.
of speech. I
Yeah.
think what was going on was it was the transmutation of his own inner energies to ultimately unify, not just with his soul, because the soul is the divine spark. That's the part of us that's actually connected to source, to the God, you
Right.
know? And so when you unify and actually are the embodiment of your true self, your soul, like you are 100% an instrument of God and of light and freedom and all these things and expansion, because that's what at least that particular side of God is. That's what love is, right? As you
Yeah.
go higher up in dimensions. Now, obviously, you could argue that, even contraction is also God, and it is, but it's all about preference. What do you prefer to experience? That's all it is. It's all God,
Right.
but clearly, these beings, that we've have documented history of in the past, whether it's Jesus or somebody else or whatever, there's plenty of masters that have been documented that have done extraordinary things and made powerful, powerful impacts on humanity. And so if we just had two of those or three of those on the planet at the same time,
Right.
or even let's say two or three of those, one of them, and then three others that were like, half at the level of consciousness as they are. I mean, the amount of impact, I mean, it just goes and goes, So I feel very hopeful, and I do truly believe that, what I believe that what I'm doing and what I'm engaged in is, in your words, addressing the root. And the more that I get out of my way each and every day, the more that I heal myself, the stronger the connection is to that truth, that what I'm
Hmm.
doing on the big picture level is huge stuff. And it
Hmm.
gets me very excited, because it's putting my own cares and my own agenda out of the way.
Yeah.
My own, I'm doing, you could say, God's work, or, something of a higher nature, rather than just focusing on myself and what kind of lavish, experiences that. And don't get me wrong, I like style and I like nice things, and I think that's all a part of the reward, in my
Hmm.
view, for being in the, and not for everybody, but if I'm doing what I'm doing here, the level of my lifestyle that I have access to is going to be a direct reward based on the work that I've put in,
Yeah. Yeah. I can
you
see
know
that for sure.
But yeah, but it's thanks to you and your story that kind of helped me, not just further reflect on mine, but really clarify what is the problem that I want to solve. And that's why I want to help people become coaches, because it just fits so well. Like, hey, you don't know what you want to do? Here's an option. And it's
Right.
also addressing the root thing, where
Yeah.
now it's a ripple. I'm not just, it's not just me doing one person at a time. Now we're exponentially amplifying, the impact.
Hey there, if you made it to the end, congratulations. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I'll get back to each and every one of you. And if you want to connect with Cody, all of that information will be in the description, links below. Have a good day.